Obi was a young man in his mid-20s, born and raised in a small village nestled in the heart of West Africa. The village was close-knit, surrounded by lush forests and fertile farmlands. The villagers were deeply connected to their ancestral roots, living life in accordance with age-old traditions and beliefs. Obi had always been an ambitious boy, eager to make something of himself. He excelled in his studies, always striving for the best. His mother, Mama Neka, was the pillar of his life. She was a strong, spiritually connected woman, and she had taught Obi the ways of their ancestors from an early age. Mama Neka believed in the power of the spirits that dwelled in the earth, in the air, and in the stars. She had always instilled in Obi the importance of staying close to his roots and honoring the wisdom of their elders. But Obi, like many young people, was torn between the old ways and the modern world. As he grew older, he found himself drawn to the allure of modern temptations, fancy clothes, new technology, and the promises of a life of ease. This created a conflict within him. He was deeply proud of his heritage, but at the same time, he was curious about what the outside world had to offer. It wasn't long before Obi's life began to change. He found himself becoming increasingly consumed by desires he couldn't fully control. It started with harmless curiosity, the occasional fleeting thought, but soon, it grew into something deeper, something darker. Obi found solace in the act of masturbation, an indulgence that gave him a brief sense of satisfaction. It started off as something simple, even innocent, but over time, it turned into an uncontrollable obsession. At first, he didn't realize the impact it would have on him. He continued with his daily routine, attending church, helping his mother in the village, and studying. But something inside him was changing. He began to feel a growing sense of emptiness, a nagging feeling that something was wrong. His relationships with others began to suffer. He couldn't connect with his friends, especially Chigazi, his best friend since childhood. He started avoiding the village gatherings and even the spiritual ceremonies that once meant so much to him. Obi tried to ignore the shame he felt, telling himself that it was a normal part of growing up. He convinced himself that the act wasn't harming anyone, that it was just a temporary escape from the pressures of life. But the more he indulged, the more distant he became from his true self. The whispers started soon after. They were subtle at first, voices he could barely hear, calling to him when he was alone at night. "You deserve this. It's the only way to feel good," the voices would say. It was as if a dark presence had taken root in his mind, feeding off his desires and pushing him deeper into the habit. One night, after another restless session, Obi stood before the mirror and saw something he hadn't noticed before. His reflections seemed distant, hollow. His eyes no longer held the light they once did. He felt a weight on his chest, an overwhelming sense of guilt and confusion. It was as though the act had taken something from him, something precious. Mama Neka had begun to notice her son's change. She could see the tension in his eyes and the way he no longer participated in the ceremonies. One evening, as they sat together by the fire, she spoke gently but firmly, "Obi, I see the struggle within you. The spirit of indulgence has found its way into your heart. You must cleanse yourself, my son. The spirits do not take kindly to such behaviors. You must return to your roots before it is too late." Obi didn't understand at first. He thought his mother was overreacting, but deep down, he knew something had shifted within him. Mama Neka shared with him stories of their ancestors, stories of men and women who had once been consumed by temptation but had found redemption through spiritual rituals and cleansing. She explained that the spirit Obi was facing was not just a personal struggle but a spiritual battle. The spirit of indulgence preyed on weaknesses, and it thrived when people let their desires go unchecked. Over the next few days, Obi began to notice the dark presence more clearly. The whispers grew louder, more insistent. He could feel the weight of them, pressing against his mind. It was as if the very air around him was thick with temptation. He could no longer tell where his thoughts ended and the whispers began. In desperation, Obi sought out Elder Akintoy, the village elder who was known for his wisdom and deep spiritual knowledge. Elder Akintoye had always been a kind and patient man, and he had helped many others in the village who were struggling with personal demons. When Obi explained his troubles, the elder listened carefully, nodding with understanding. "The spirit behind your addiction is old, Obi," Elder Akintoye said in a low, gravelly voice. "It has been around since the beginning of time. It is a spirit that feeds on human desires, on our need for gratification. But there is a way to overcome it. The first step is acknowledging that you are not in control. The second step is purification." The elder instructed Obi to go through a purification ritual, a spiritual cleansing that involved fasting, prayer, and connection with the earth. The ritual would require him to give up all worldly desires, even temporarily, to reconnect with the spiritual world and his true self. Obi was reluctant at first, unsure if he could endure the trials. But with his mother's encouragement and the elder's guidance, he agreed to embark on the journey of healing. The next few weeks were grueling for Obi. He fasted for days, went through emotional purging, and meditated under the ancient baobab tree in the village. His body ached, his mind was restless, and at times, he felt like giving up. But through it all, Obi began to feel a shift. The whispers became softer, less powerful, and slowly, they began to fade away. He realized that the spirit had no power over him unless he gave in to it. His strength was in his ability to resist, to purify his heart and soul. After weeks of spiritual cleansing, Obi emerged a changed man. His heart was lighter, his mind clearer. The dark presence no longer haunted him. He had reclaimed his power from the spirit of indulgence and had learned a valuable lesson about the importance of self-control, spiritual guidance, and the strength of his ancestral roots. Obi returned to the village, renewed and stronger than ever. He participated fully in the spiritual ceremonies, his relationship with his mother grew deeper, and his bonds with others were restored. He shared his journey with those who were struggling like he had, teaching them the lessons he had learned. Through his struggles, Obi had come to understand that true freedom did not come from indulging in temporary pleasures but from the ability to control oneself, to understand one's desires, and to find strength in one's spirituality. The spirit that had once held him captive was now gone, and Obi had emerged victorious, not just in his own life but as a beacon of hope for others in his village.